Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings there. My name is Daniel Mpolomoka. I'll present a paper that emanates from a research that was done by a number of colleagues here in Zambia, Lusaka. The colleagues that took part in this study included Dr. Christine Mushewe, who is the acting Vice Chancellor at University of Africa here in Lusaka, Dr. Mbono Dube, a linguist, Dr. Mwewa Msonda is an Assistant Commissioner of Police here in Zambia. Phyllis Sumbwa is a lecturer at UNZA, University of Zambia. Dr. Mabenga Michael is a former minister in the MMD government here in Zambia. And Esther Kanduza, a colleague here at Zambian Open University. Our presentation is entitled Community Reflections on Intergenerational Sexual Relations in Solwezi District. Solwezi is located in northwestern province of Zambia. Zambia has 10 provinces. The outline of my presentation begins with an introduction, then the backdrop. I also provide the objectives, methodology, and I'll proceed to give the findings and discussions of what emanated from the research that was done, with the recommendations and conclusion coming last. As I must mention from the onset that this presentation is based on a research that was done. It was done in Northwestern Province, in Solwezi District in particular. We'll try and endeavor to provide a profile of individuals who engage in international generational sexual relations in Solwezi and give the details that provide the motives for them to engage in these intergenerational sexual relations. Also provide the benefits and the challenges that come thereafter. We'll provide a critical reflection, a conclusion and recommendation afterwards. In the backdrop, I must mention that Solwezi District has become a final destination and dwelling place of choice of many Zambian and foreign migrants. Solwezi houses one of the biggest mines in Zambia, and probably the second biggest mine in Zambia again, Lumwana, and the other one. So being a booming mining harbor, second to the copper belt, many are moving to that part of the country to take up mining jobs and conduct business. This has made the lifestyles, personal life, trades, and trends change. That change is what seems to ignite intergenerational sexual relations. There has been a notable increase in intergenerational sexual relations among boys, girls, men, women of all ages. Media reports, revelations from various communities, and rampant police reports are evident enough of this vice. This prompted the researchers to undertake this research. The main objective was to describe the occurrences of intergenerational sexual relations among males, females, in the urban areas of Solwezi District. The following methodology was adopted. It was a retrospective research approach, predominantly falling in the qualitative research methodology. We fell back on data that came from similar studies undertaken by NGOs and government ministries, including institutions of higher learning. The study targeted all males and females engaged in intergenerational sexual relations. Snowballing was the predominant method of sampling that we used, and we analyzed the data thematically. The findings. I must mention, there should be a slide that is missing here. I must mention that after the snowballing and access of these respondents who are engaged in intergenerational sexual relations, we actually managed to talk to 30 females, 25 males, and also managed to talk to 10 heads of departments to try and help us understand this vice. Many of these government heads of departments are from the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services, the Ministry of Health, social welfare district officers, to mention but a few. In rural contexts, we must understand that what seemed to be surrounding the areas where we went were impoverished, vulnerable adolescent girls who unknowingly are pulled into sexual relationships with older partners in the hope of stable marriage, protection, and/or a better economic future. We must understand that the definition of intergenerational sexual relations being applied here is that one of a gap in between a male and a female of a decade plus. This is why vulnerability, impoverishedness seems to be some of the issue that came up. Now, in this setting, Solwezi, we find high-density urban Solwezi settlements, and the relationships adolescents engage in have largely taken the form of transactional sex, driven by desperation to earn quick cash for daily survival, but also increasingly as a lifestyle choice fostered by peer pressure to gain easy access to luxury material, items, services that would not otherwise be affordable through other income that the generation options available to adolescents could access. It becomes extremely interesting to discuss the drivers of intergenerational sexual relations that we found out at this point, having established this setting in which the study was done. The first driver I'll look at is the economic driver, manifested in acute income and subsistence poverty and ill-being in both rural and urban, where critical in pushing adolescent girls and boys into transactional, cross-generational sexual relationships. These economic drivers are typified by low agricultural income, subsistence poverty, characterized by inability to meet basic needs such as food, clothing, decent shelter, health care, and school fees for children. The second driver is social, cultural, and religious issues, which proliferate and include pornography, especially the so-called blue films amongst the teens. This was actually said by a number of teens, the majority of them. Okay. The makeshift video halls where pornography is shown were reportedly abandoned in communities where we went. It was also noted that old men and women show blue films in their homes to lure girls, boys, respectively, in illicit sex. It was also noticed that male youth said girls deliberately opted to have sex with older men to explore the myth or perception of heightened erotic virility, pleasure often associated with having sex with older men, but described as lacking in boys. Quite interesting, but very scary finding there. The third driver is based on family instability, sexual abuse, and neglect. It was established that instability, abuse, and neglect inside families and households were reportedly very common to be driving children into intergenerational sex. Insights from respondents further revealed that situations where the children are in the hands of stepmothers also contributed. Unfortunately, some fathers, especially those who use drugs and alcohol, force their daughters into sex with them as well. I had to find somebody to fend for me. The fourth driver was peer pressure and lifestyle choices. Youth, the majority, identified peer pressure as an emerging push factor of both girls and boys into intergenerational sex. Adolescent girls and boys also explained that girls that engaged in relationships with older men or women, even if their basic needs were met, as it was seen as a way to gain access to luxury goods they would not otherwise have, but for which there is social pressure among peers to obtain. They want to obtain perfumes, they want to obtain clothing, and so many things. In fact, some respondents mentioned that even those coming from stable, well-to-do families were known to engage in cross-generational sexual relationships with older men for various reasons, including sexual gratification, acquisition of luxury items, smartphones, plasma TVs, to mention but a few. What also emanated from the findings were that peer pressures were not the only ones. TV was not the only issue, but check, we also had the virtual networks that seem to exist amongst youths and the adults alike. Facebook, the social media network, seems to take the toll as well and influence the birth and perpetuation of intergenerational sexual relationships. The fifth driver is sexual gratification. The proliferation of pornography, especially the blue films, which has already been mentioned, the makeshift video halls, which has already been mentioned. But I must mention here that in Zambia, it's common to find 3, 4 people in a family living in one room, divided by curtains. On the other side, it's the parents, mother and father. On the other side is the boys. On the other side is the living room, and that's where the girls probably sleep. And there's no secrecy. Children get to hear everything. In other instances, we also find female-headed or male-headed households, all living in one home. Today, it's the man that brings another woman, and the children are introduced as, this is your mother. In a year, children are introduced to 10 different mothers. That also came out as a factor and influencer in terms of intergenerational sexual relations. Because the same men and women eventually ask for sex from the children of whosoever they go to visit in those one-roomed apartments. The sixth driver is restricted access to community resources and essential services. Okay? So we see the boreholes that are supposed to be accessed by everyone, the protection and child welfare facilities which are supposed to help the children and enable them integrate into societies not being there. Exposure for the children is limited. What they see is the one-roomed house or the only vicinity where they live. And what happens? The children get to come together with their friends and engage in whatever their friends engage in. For example, the physical distance to facilities, the particular wells, the boreholes, the mills. If it's the boreholes, it was brought out to be very clear. The distances between some villages and where the boreholes are a little apart, far apart. And as the girls or the boys go to fetch this water, they mix with their friends who engage in these activities. They influence them and expose them to sexual abuse, either ways, men or women. As I come to the end, I must, where are my conclusions now? I must conclude by saying that the study provides evidence on the high incidence of cross-generational sexual relationships in the research sites that were visited, acute income poverty, and these stupefying effects subjecting both girls and boys to a myriad of vulnerabilities that make them engage in intergenerational sexual relationship.
Okay, thanks for the polling session here, and we are ending the poll.